During the car accident, Jasper instinctively pulled his secretary behind him without any hesitation, while I was hurled away by the force of the collision. Just before I lost consciousness, I realized that he had never truly loved me. Over the years, he had been romantically involved with one girl after another, each of them bearing a faint resemblance to his high school first love. He blamed me, saying, "If it weren't for you back then, Zana and I would surely have been happy together." When I regained consciousness, I found myself back in high school. It was precisely the day that Zana had sent a subtle signal to Jasper. "Happy, huh? Fine. I'll let you two be happy. Sorry, but I only date the top student in the grade." In a daze, I turned around and looked at Zana's cold and proud expression. In that moment, I suddenly understood that I had been reborn, returning to the period just before the senior year mock exams. As I stared dumbfounded at Zana, Sky waved his hand in front of my eyes, his mouth twitching in an unsuccessful attempt to suppress his smile. "Us she wants to be with you. Ha 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 ha." Zana was the recognized school beauty. She was tall and carried herself with elegance and grace. Even our Chinese teacher, who was passionate about martial arts novels, couldn't resist praising her charm when he first laid eyes on her, comparing her to a descendant of the ancient Tomb sect. The only blemish in her otherwise perfect image was her consistently poor academic performance. By that point, countless people had already confessed their feelings to her. I had thought her statement about only dating the top student was meant to discourage others. Since the first year of high school, I had consistently held the top rank in our grade. Later, I discovered she had been hinting at Jasper all along. Jasper, who was ranked just below me, sat directly behind Zana. The moment she said those words, he abruptly raised his head, his reaction visibly unusual. In my previous life, Jasper briefly met my gaze, but quickly lowered his head again, returning to his exercises as though nothing had happened. But now, a spark of joy lit up his face, as if he had just rediscovered something precious he thought he had lost. At that moment, I was convinced Jasper had been reborn, too. Jasper and I were childhood sweethearts, practically inseparable since birth. We were born in the same hospital, and he was 3 months older than me. His first spoken word had been my name. From childhood through adolescence, our lives were deeply intertwined. We attended the same schools, did our homework together, went to amusement parks, and studied in libraries side by side. Even during performances, we were always paired as the perfect partners. Jasper's mother frequently smiled and affectionately joked that I was her destined daughter-in-law. I would blush and deny it, but deep down, a part of me felt quietly delighted. After all, who wouldn't like Jasper? He would scold me for being picky about food and not growing taller. Yet, at the same time, he would meticulously remove the carrots from my plate. When I accidentally got locked inside my house during a spring outing, he climbed in through the window to stay with me. At the beginning of our first year in high school, Jasper led me away from the class group, and we sneaked up to the temple at the top of the mountain. "Aziz, let's go to Beijing together," he said. I was too embarrassed to respond. Kneeling before the Buddha statue, I pressed my hands together, closed my eyes tightly, and refused to say anything. He lightly tapped my forehead, half joking but still somewhat serious. Assis, don't you dare refuse me. I glared at him in mock anger, but when our eyes met, his smile softened me instantly. What if I can't get in? I asked nervously. Jasper laughed carefreely. Then I'll go wherever you go. If you have to repeat a year, I'll repeat it with you. At that young age, my secret crush took on a tangible form. From that day forward, getting into Beijing with Jasper became my sole goal. My grades began to improve dramatically, and soon I was nearly achieving full marks in every subject. Jasper wasn't far behind, consistently maintaining his position as the second-ranked student in our grade. I naively thought our future was clear, so long as I stayed by his side until the summer of our 18th year, everything would fall into place. But then, Zana arrived. Zana transferred into our class during the second semester of sophomore year. I heard rumors that her parents had divorced, and she had moved back with her mother. Like Jasper, she immediately became a school sensation. From the day she stepped on campus, everyone knew that a new school beauty had arrived. In the selection process for the female lead in the school promotional video, her popularity was as overwhelming as my academic standing. That day, Zana stood at the podium wearing a plain white dress, looking as though she had stepped out of a painting. I turned my head and saw Jasper, who had just returned from the physics teacher's office, standing at the back door and too stunned to hand in his report. While most believed that intense academic life and youthful beauty could not coexist, Zana proved otherwise. From the very beginning, her treatment of Jasper felt different. The teacher, concerned that she might struggle to adapt, appointed me as the class monitor to look after her. However, she always turned to Jasper for assistance, explaining that since he sat directly behind her, it was more convenient for him to help. Zna was heading to pick up her textbooks when she hesitantly turned around and softly said, "Jasper, I'm still unfamiliar with the school. Can you take me there?" At the time, I was resting my head on the desk, suffering from a severe headache, and Jasper was just about to take me home. I thought he would turn her down, but after a short pause, I heard him say to me, "Eyes, wait here until I get back." The school wasn't large, yet I waited for almost an hour before completely losing consciousness. When Jasper's parents found out about this, they scolded him harshly. Jasper stayed by my bedside with reddened eyes and refused to return to school for classes no matter what. I later learned that Zna had twisted her ankle while on her way to collect the textbooks, and Jasper carried her to the infirmary. Several people witnessed this scene along the way and couldn't help but gush about how they would forever believe in love. The golden sunset and the turbulent emotions of youth filled the blank pages of many of their memories. By the time Jasper returned, the classroom was deserted, and I had already been taken away by the classmates who were checking the classroom hygiene. After that incident, Jasper seemed to return to his former self, focused solely on his studies and keeping his attention fixed on me. However, there was also an unspoken shift in the atmosphere. I didn't dwell on it too much. After all, how could a bond that had spanned more than 10 years be shaken by someone who had only been around for a few days? Zna grew increasingly popular within the school, and pink envelopes continuously accumulated on her desk. She often made a point of tossing love letters into the trash right in front of Jasper. When sign-ups for the sports meet began, Jasper, as usual, refused to participate in any events. Not even I, his childhood companion, could sway his decision. During free time in physical education class, Zna stood beside him, gazing up at him with her large, captivating eyes, never once blinking. The students around them teased and made a commotion, though I couldn't catch exactly what was said. All I knew was that afterward, Jasper returned to the classroom with a serious expression and promptly wrote his name on the sports meet registration form. To everyone's surprise, he signed up for the long-distance running event, the one activity he disliked the most. That day, as we walked home side by side like usual, our shadows overlapping beneath the setting sun, I asked, why? Our silent understanding over the years allowed him to grasp what I meant without further explanation. He also knew I was bound to ask. Jasper explained that a boy from another class had been bothering Zina. If someone from our class could secure first place in the 3,000-meter race, that boy would stop pestering her. It's just classmates helping each other out, Jasper said. I believed him. I believed that his intentions were simply about lending a hand. But looking back now, I realize that whenever Jasper mentioned Zna, there was a sparkle in his eyes. I thought he shone because I liked him, but I overlooked the possibility that his gaze brightened only when he talked about the girl he had feelings for. Jasper could hide his feelings well, but not entirely. His affection seeped out through his eyes. Oz, don't you think something seems off between Zna and Jasper? Sky observed them for a while before speaking cautiously. In my previous life, Jasper concealed it well enough that even I hadn't noticed. But now, even Sky could see it. Monitor, you need to keep an eye on your man, Sky teased. I opened my exercise book without lifting my head and replied, Am I a trash bin or something? That afternoon, after school, Jasper didn't wait for me. Instead, he eagerly followed Sna out of the classroom. From beginning to end, he didn't glance at me once, the very person he had betrayed in our past life. He didn't seem to feel any guilt. In this life, Jasper devoted all his attention to Zina, but I had no intention of repeating old mistakes. I approached the physics teacher and expressed my desire to participate in the physics competition. In my past life, I had given up that opportunity to help Jasper earn extra points for the college entrance exams. Since my grades were consistently excellent, I was confident that I could place in the top 3 provincially. Jasper, however, might not have managed it. Ultimately, those bonus points were the only reason he narrowly made the cutoff for a university in Beijing. Reflecting now, I suspect his performance suffered due to an incident involving Zna. Yet, since Jasper had also been reborn, I figured it was time to throw a few surprises his way. Rumors of Jasper and Zena being together grew louder. People reported seeing Jasper driving Zena to watch the sunset by the river on weekends, skipping out on physics competition tutoring. Others spotted them holding hands while seated in the couples section of a theater during a romance movie, with Jasper gently wiping Zna's tears away with his thumb. There were even accounts of Jasper getting into a fight with students from a neighboring school over Zna, leading to police intervention. Classmates whispered endlessly. Who exactly was Jasper's girlfriend, Zna or Eyes? How can Eyes compare to Zna? Someone muttered. Jasper suddenly lifted his head and snapped, "Watch what you say." His sudden anger took the room by surprise. A few students who disliked his cocky demeanor deliberately retorted, "Didn't Zena say she'd only date the top student in the grade? The monitor is the top student. Are you even aware of your own rank?" Jasper had long held the number 2 spot, but no matter what, he couldn't surpass me. Zna, entering the room at that moment, visibly darkened. I paused mid-sentence and nearly forgot what I was writing. To avoid suspicion, I intentionally glanced back at Jasper with a forlorn expression. Even so, his face made me feel sick. Ironically, now I felt nothing but disgust. Elias, who secured remarkable results in the college entrance examination and directly achieved the title of provincial top scorer, was straightforward and upright. He seemed like a promising talent in my past life. At that time, I never gave much thought to Zia, even though she frequently passed by with red eyes. There was a saying in our school that surpassing Elias in exams was harder than winning over Z's heart. I failed to notice Jasper's hesitant expression when school ended. I continued laughing and discussing plans for the future with him until I heard that Zia was with the top student from the neighboring school. Jasper's gaze toward me shifted entirely. I assumed he was overwhelmed by academic pressure and considered inviting him out to unwind. Later, Zia and her boyfriend snuck out during evening self-study to watch a movie, but got into a car accident on a dark, remote road. Jasper laid all the blame on me. I chose to give up my life to honor his unfulfilled youthful love. In this life, knowing Jasper's character, he surely wouldn't want to let Zia lose face. He was resolute about clinching the top student title for our grade. I prepared thoroughly, even installing surveillance cameras by my front door, fearing he might send someone to break into my house and harm me. Yet, on the day of the mock exam, Jasper took no action. Could it be that having a second shot at life, he believed he could outperform me academically? I sipped milk absent-mindedly, suddenly noticing something odd. The milk smelled faintly of almonds. I have an almond allergy, which was only discovered during a premarital physical exam. "Mom, did you buy this milk?" "No, Jasper brought it over this morning." "Why?" I forced a smile. "Oh, Jasper, you really went all out for first place." That day, I applied to take the exam in a private room, fearing Jasper might try to sabotage me again. The teacher agreed quickly upon seeing I was coughing nonstop and wearing a mask. This was a citywide joint exam, and if my coughing affected students in the top 20 exam rooms, it would be significant. After the brief 3-day holiday, I entered the classroom, head down, appearing weak. It seemed fate had perfectly paired the school idol and the school bell. "I heard the monitor didn't even show up for the exam," one of Zia's close friends remarked sarcastically, glancing at me. "Wouldn't that mean Jasper is definitely first?" "For sure. Honestly, the monitor should quit obsessing over Jasper. They've grown up together. It's not like he can't choose a girlfriend now." Zia shyly lowered her head, gripping hands tightly with him beneath the table. I couldn't resist rolling my eyes. They should just stay glued together forever. Whoever breaks up will be worse than a dog. Before I could return to my seat, Sky rushed over. What's going on? You didn't take the exam? Raising an eyebrow, I lowered my voice. Who said I didn't? Not only did I take the exam, but I can also be the top scorer. The head teacher entered with the report card, her face full of wrinkles from smiling at the class. There are 2 first-place scorers in the citywide joint exam, and they are both from our class. Naturally, the first in the joint exam also meant the top rank in our grade. Before she could finish speaking, the students began chattering excitedly. No way. 2? Besides Jasper, who else could it be? Zia really is popular. A lot of people quietly put in hard work. I wasn't sure who to envy in that moment. After all, if the monitor had taken the exam, the gap between first place and the rest would have been immense. How could there be 2 top scorers? Jasper's face immediately darkened as he spoke, pausing after every word. If I can be first this time, I can be first next time too. The teacher, hearing only the latter part, began clapping. That's right. Jasper can aim to be first again next time. Such ambition. The class exchanged confused glances. Wait, next time? Jasper wasn't one of the 2 top scorers? The projector displayed the results. First place, Zia. First place, Elias. Third place, Jasper. Impossible. Zia didn't even take the exam. How could she be first? I turned slightly in surprise. Who said I didn't take it? I was coughing, so I applied for a private room to avoid disturbing others. The room fell silent momentarily before erupting into disbelief. Seriously? Would he really go this far? Poisoning someone out of love? I furrowed my brows, pretending not to understand. Jasper, did you tamper with the milk you gave my mom that morning just to secure first place? The classroom grew quiet once more, followed by an outburst. No way. Poisoning for love? If the allergy was severe, that could be fatal. How cruel. The funniest part? Even though I missed the exam room, Jasper still wasn't first. He acted as if he were and even claimed he'd come in first next time. I guess he'll have to wait until his next life. Oh, right. He's already living his second life. After the mock exam, Zia remained by Jasper's side. No one openly mentioned it, but everyone silently acknowledged the reality. In my past life, after marrying Jasper, I felt satisfied. We had known and loved each other since childhood, perfectly complementing one another. I was even closer to Jasper's mother than he was. Most of my friends envied my marriage until the day his secretary intercepted me at the company entrance. She bore an uncanny resemblance to Zia, sharing at least 8 out of 10 features. Her lively and flamboyant nature suggested she had been spoiled by Jasper. Following a few disagreements, Jasper exited the company, frowning and stepping between us. Zia has nothing to do with this. That day marked the first and last time I lost my temper with him. A runaway truck came hurtling toward us. Reflexively, Jasper pushed his secretary aside. When I was rushed to the hospital, his voice echoed softly in my ear, cold yet devastating. I've never loved you. I married you for revenge. I have kept many women outside, all resembling Zna, but none of them are truly her. You robbed Z's life, and everything you possess now rightfully belongs to Zna. She must have suffered immensely when she was struck down. Go to hell, Aiz. Go to hell. Amid his venomous curses, I passed away with resentment lingering in my heart. I didn't even get a final glimpse of my parents, much like in the past life. Despite it being Jasper who failed to communicate properly, he placed the entire burden of blame on me. I couldn't help but think of how my parents must have been devastated by my tragic condition, their hair turning white overnight, while Jasper stood by, satisfied as if he'd exacted revenge. A sneer crept into my heart. Jasper, I actually loved someone like you? I must have been blind. Rumors spread rapidly within the class. Someone openly remarked in a mocking tone, suggesting that perhaps Elias had feelings for Xena. How else could the perpetual third-place student suddenly claim the top spot? Elias didn't bother lifting his head. I despise idiots. The classroom fell so silent that a pin drop could be heard. A second later, Jasper slammed his desk and shot up from his seat. You did slightly better in this exam. What gives you the right to be so smug? Elias, still scribbling calculations on scratch paper, retorted without looking up. I loathe fools with narrow minds even more. I couldn't help but suspect that Elias had intentionally controlled his scores all along. Otherwise, how could he have improved by over 20 points within a month, surpassing everyone in the college entrance exams to seize the title of provincial top scorer? After the incident with the milk, I decisively distanced myself from Jasper. Time flew by, and soon it was time for the physics competition selection. In the previous life, neither Elias nor I participated, but this time we both registered. After the final tutoring session for the competition, Elias and I strolled along the tree-lined path, one trailing behind the other. Curiosity got the better of me, and I turned to ask, Elias, have you been deliberately holding back your scores? He was clearly startled for a moment, his deep, dark eyes locking onto mine without wavering. No, I've just always been losing to you. A breeze rustled the leaves overhead, scattering them around us. Dressed in his blue and white school uniform, Elias stood tall and proud, like a pine tree in a snowy forest. We exchanged smiles, but said no more. Jasper was eventually summoned to school with his parents. He had clashed with students from another class over Zna. It happened when Zna passed by their classroom, and a few classmates made inappropriate comments about her. Zna felt insulted and exaggerated the incident to Jasper. Reborn and accustomed to his authoritative role in the company, Jasper couldn't tolerate even minor provocations, especially when they involved the woman he adored. He stormed into the neighboring class, slamming his hands on the desk and physically assaulting one of the students in front of the teacher, leaving him with a head injury. The head teacher was furious to the point of nearly collapsing. Jasper, you are still a high school student. Right now, your studies are the most important thing. Do you know how many lives are shaped by just a single point in the college entrance exam? You are being reckless with your future. Remember the goal you wrote at the start of the year. How do you plan to achieve admission to the top universities like this? Didn't you promise to head to the capital with eyes? Jasper's expression darkened, and with visible irritation he replied, Who said I made plans with her? That was all her imagination. Jasper's mother, on the verge of tears, anxiously asked, Son, what is going on with you? Gripping Zna's hand tightly, Jasper interrupted. Teacher, don't worry. I'll prove myself through the physics competition. I stood silently outside the door, holding the registration form, staring down at the floor. The head teacher voiced what I had been thinking. Only the top 2 will qualify for the competition. What makes you think you're eligible? It was at that moment Jasper sensed something amiss. Wasn't I the first? I stepped in from outside, placing the registration form on the table. Teacher, this is the form for Elias and me. In the previous life, since neither Elias nor I had entered the selection, Jasper automatically secured the top spot. This time, fate would no longer favor him. Jasper's face paled as he stared at me in disbelief. Impossible. How could you be participating? Feigning surprise, I glanced at him. Didn't you realize? Elias's grades have caught up to mine. Of course, I have to think ahead. Naturally, I had lied. Jasper's expression grew increasingly grim. Even then, I found his actions puzzling. If he was committed to Zna, why did he still cling so desperately to the idea of going to the capital? Later, I heard whispers that Zna was actually the illegitimate daughter of a wealthy businessman from the capital. She had a reputation for being mischievous at her former school. It made sense. What serious student would sneak out to catch a movie? After transferring to Yang City, her mind remained fixated on returning to the capital. With his appearance, family background, and academic record, Jasper was the perfect candidate to help her establish herself there. In the beginning, Zna would accompany Jasper to the library, and they studied side by side. Nowadays, managing students like them was challenging for the head teacher, who chose to ignore it. But it didn't take long for Zna's true nature to surface. She began dragging Jasper to amusement parks, attempting to relive childhood dreams. She entered the bar using a fake ID, secretly telling Jasper that this was how youth should be lived to fit in with others. In this life, Jasper, who wouldn't have smoked in his past, could now easily handle cigarettes at just 18. During the final mock exam before the college entrance exam, Jasper's grades had fallen out of the top 100, while I remained in first place, with Elias close behind me. When I returned home that evening, I found Jasper's mother dragging him to the sofa. He kept his head down, looking upset. Jasper's mother glanced at my report card repeatedly, her eyes red and swollen from crying. And with a choked voice, she said, "Isn't the college entrance exam coming soon? Could you lend your notes to Jasper?" I hesitated for a moment before shaking my head and replying, "Auntie, I don't have any notes." The truth was, I never took notes, as I had memorized all the material. She quickly said, "Please organize a copy and bring it tomorrow." Jasper stood up and coldly muttered that he didn't want to stay any longer. Even to this day, he still thought I wouldn't refuse him. Why? Because he had always known that I liked him. With that confident expression, he truly believed I had feelings for him. I let out a cold laugh and said, "I don't have time. I'm also preparing for the exam." Jasper's voice suddenly grew louder. "Didn't you get extra points in physics?" "Sorry, but my goal is to be the top scorer in the province." He sneered and said, "I'm telling you, even if you were the top scorer, if I had 1,000 or 10,000 chances to choose again, I'd still choose Zena." His words didn't hurt me in the slightest. Being chosen by you would be my misfortune, I said, crossing my arms. This is your life. It has nothing to do with me. Jasper's mother almost dragged him away, crying, and pleaded, "Please listen to your mother, just this once." All that was left was the sound of the door slamming shut as he left. On the day of the college entrance exam, my parents personally took me to the exam venue. Everyone was in their school uniforms, except for Jasper and Zena, who wore couple outfits with skull designs. They claimed they wanted to be the first couple to officially announce their relationship after the exams, and even hoped to be interviewed by the media. Indeed, there were reporters waiting at the door, but they were there to interview Elias and me, since we were the top two in the last provincial joint exam. How do you feel? Are you confident? Elias and I, as if we were old friends, answered in unison, "It's not a big problem." Meanwhile, Jasper and Zena, standing off to the side, were being criticized by the parents outside. Can you believe there are such students at number 1 middle school? They're still taking the college entrance exam, but they seem to want everyone to know what they're up to. Look at those huge tattoos on their arms. If I were their parents, I'd be furious. They don't look like students at all. They didn't get their interview as they hoped, and slunk away in embarrassment. After the exams, at the celebration, I used makeup skills from my previous life. It looked like he had no makeup on, but in reality, it was all carefully done. When my classmates saw me, a hint of surprise appeared in their eyes. Sky came over to me, half smiling, and said, "Everyone's hiding their true abilities. Elias looks even more handsome without his glasses, and you don't look much worse than Zina when you change into your own clothes." I took it as a compliment. My classmates congratulated Elias and me for tying for first place and becoming the provincial top scorers. "You're going to Peking University, right? I saw on your Go wallet that you're going to Beijing," a classmate asked, smiling. "Tsinghua University is also really good. Didn't Elias get into Tsinghua?" Jasper's gaze had been on me the entire time, his expression complicated. Since Zina entered his life, whether in the past or now, he had never truly looked at me. He never recognized the qualities I had, so he didn't feel the love I had for him. Zina snorted coldly. She was used to being the center of attention and expected the focus to always be on her. Moreover, she noticed that even Jasper's gaze was fixed on me. The monitor said, "They say marriage gives a woman a second chance at life, but no one says that about the college entrance exam. No matter how good your grades are, once today is over, it's all in the past." Sky was the first to frown and retort. "The Qing dynasty has long been over. Why hasn't someone as useless as you gone with it?" "Exactly. No wonder people call you stupid. I don't know why you're so proud. Don't say you're from our class." "It's embarrassing," someone else added. Jasper tried to pull Zna away, whispering, "Zna, you're drunk." Zna completely ignored what others were saying and pushed her way past me, convinced that as long as Jasper spoke a word, she would sacrifice anything for him. "Can you do that? I can drop out of school and have his baby right now." "Can you?" she taunted. "You're no match for me. All you can do is drag him into studying." I was momentarily speechless and simply looked at her calmly. "What you're saying means nothing to me," I replied. At 18, Zina stopped smiling and gave me a confused look. For me, those 3 years represented the first move toward my future. Whether I hit the mark or not, that was the most important thing. When I got home that day, my mother received a call from Jasper's mother. Jasper was planning to go to Beijing, but his grades weren't good enough for an easy application. But I'll be at ease if he goes there. He can look after C's and maybe realize his mistakes, Jasper's mother said. My mom appeared a bit uncomfortable, but interrupted her, saying, C's probably won't go to Beijing. She's planning to study abroad. The world is so large, and I no longer want to be tied down by empty promises. On the other end of the line, I heard a stunned voice. What? That was Jasper. The paths of his life and mine had completely diverged. After completing my bachelor's and master's degrees, I returned to China and joined a new startup. It turned out that Elias was the boss, and after all these years, I ended up working under him. He had been controlling his grades all along. We had a great working relationship, and in the 3rd year of the company's operation, Elias and I donated the Qingbei building to our high school in both our names. The principal quickly arranged a reunion for our class, which Elias and I attended. As everyone chatted and laughed, someone brought up Jasper. It seemed that even now, in their minds, my name and Jasper's were always paired. Jasper's really not doing well now. His father had a stroke 2 years ago after getting angry with him. He inherited the company, and now it's about to go bankrupt. The person who said this spoke as though gossiping about someone's family, with the tone of someone enjoying a spectacle. If he hadn't fallen in love so early, he could have chosen any school he wanted. Another person added, What kind of person is Zina? I don't think anyone doesn't know her by now. Someone else remarked, Have you been living in a cave? Zina started taking money from Jasper in high school. She brought home piles of shoes, clothes, and bags. Later, Jasper had to help cover financial gaps in her father's business. Isn't that what dragged him down? I remembered going to Jasper's family business to discuss cooperation, and his father had seemed well. The next day, however, he was in a bad state. How much of a shock must that have been? I lowered my eyes quietly. It was probably around that time that my mother told me something had happened to Jasper's family, but I was rushing to the airport and didn't ask for details. One day, Elias walked me home, as he often did, staying behind me as usual. Suddenly, I turned and looked directly at him. Elias, do you like me? I asked. A few days earlier, I had dreamed that Elias had avenged me in my past life. 3 months after I died, he had taken down Jasper's family business, sent Jasper to prison, and ensured even his secretary ended up there. Soon after, Jasper died, and Elias visited my grave alone, staying until sunset. He spoke a lot, his words full of love. He knew I had liked Jasper. I remembered how happy I had been when my photo appeared on the honor roll next to Jasper's. He had always manipulated his ranking to stay third. Later, due to the influence of Jasper during the college entrance exam, I didn't perform as I usually did, which allowed him to become the provincial top scorer. In this life, he excelled in the mock exams because he thought I wasn't participating. Jasper had long noticed something was off with the two of us, but had not wanted me to feel sad about their relationship. So, he took first place. He once told me he had always lost to me, but that loss meant he liked me. Because of his feelings, he was willing to always support me from behind. The next morning, I heard commotion outside. It turned out that Jasper's family went bankrupt and the court came to seal their house. In my past life, his company had also faced a crisis, but I had been there, trying everything to save it. This time, however, I wasn't by his side. Even with all his abilities, he couldn't prevent Zna from constantly manipulating the books. Zna did what she said she would. She dropped out of college in her first year and moved into a house rented by Jasper. She claimed nothing was more important than spending every day with her boyfriend. Perhaps all love fades over time as their differences grew and their arguments became more intense until Zina got pregnant. Zina's mother came over, crying and causing a scene, and eventually they got married. However, she was only 2 or 3 months pregnant when this happened. While shopping, Zina got into a confrontation with someone in the mall, where she violently fought using Jasper's card. Both sides became physical, and during the altercation, Zna was pushed to the ground and lost the baby. After that incident, she never became pregnant again. Later, Zna's father's business collapsed, leaving him in significant debt. He fled to Yong City, while Jasper's family became the financial support for Zna's family. Zna's father repeatedly provoked Jasper's father, which ultimately led to his collapse. Jasper took control of the company, and Zina became the accountant, instructing her team to falsify accounts and evade taxes. These actions set the stage for their eventual downfall. Eventually, everything was exposed, and both of them were imprisoned. No lawyer in Yong City was willing to take on their case. When I returned to Beijing, my mother seemed unsure and finally told me that Jasper wanted to see me. In both past and present lives, Jasper had always appeared confident, but now the years had left their marks on his face. He sat there, his eyes dull. After a long pause, Jasper spoke in a soft voice, asking, "Would you like to hear a story?" I frowned slightly and glanced at my watch. "Make it quick." He seemed nervous and didn't dare to meet my eyes. "I had a dream," he began. "In it, I married you and ended up causing your death. I was terrified and couldn't follow the dream's course. So He trailed off. I scoffed. "Jasper, do you even believe what you're saying?" Seeing the mockery on my face, his voice shook. "You clearly liked me," he said. "I'm sorry. I regret it now. Please, I regret everything. Save me, please." I looked at him, emotionless. "Jasper, that wasn't a dream. Do you think you're the only one who was reborn? I was the one who spread the rumors about what you and Sna did when you went out. I didn't drink that glass of milk. I deliberately signed up for the physics competition. Zina is so foolish. She actually believed that skipping classes and exams for you was the right choice. I knew all about her messed up family situation long before, but I kept it from you on purpose. Everything you could think of was exactly what I expected. I just wanted you to face the consequences of your actions." Jasper stood there in shock for 3 seconds, seemingly realizing everything. He suddenly leapt up and slammed his fist against the glass. You did this on purpose. Do you want me to die?" The guards quickly restrained him. Even as they dragged him away, he screamed, "Give me one more chance, just one more chance, and I'll do it all over again. I picked up my bag and stood there calmly. He would never get another chance because in this life I would live well. I would travel to faraway places, see brighter lights, and walk hand in hand with the one I love. Together, we would keep moving forward,